right. Hello, everyone. It looks like we're live. Welcome to this episode of Mom Enough Live. I'm Erin Erickson here with my mom, Marty Erickson, and we're thrilled to have Sara Reichstadt with us from Kinderberry Hill, where she's been in a pivotal part of early childhood education for more than 20 years. She started in classrooms, and now she's leading curriculum development as the director of education. And Sara brings a wealth of knowledge, especially in the Reggio Emilia approach and in assessment and early literacy, among many other things. So we are so grateful for our partnership with Kinderberry Hill and the amazing insights that we've gotten from Sara and from other experts there, and just always are so pleased with how practical and wise their insights are. So today we're going to be diving into the world of process art. So what is process art and why is it so beneficial for children compared to traditional crafts? Sara is going to be sharing some fantastic ideas for process art activities you can try at home, along with some practical tips to support these wonderfully messy learning experiences. So grab your paints, grab your color crayons, get comfy, and prepare to unleash your child's creativity with Sara Reichstadt. Thank you so much for joining us, Sara.
Hi, thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, we love having you.
We do. And Sara, I love having you because almost everything you talk with us about is fun. And, you know, as a child development specialist myself, and for more years than I want to count, we sometimes underestimate how important fun is, but also what deep learning happens during fun activities such as process art. So start us off today by telling us what process art really is.
Right. Process art really is all about placing the importance on the creation and the exploring of mediums. With process art, we really don't care what the end result is. We aren't hoping they make something. We are just giving children ample time to explore different types of mediums. I always say children need to figure out what something can do before they realize or even try to figure out what they want to do with it. And this is kind of, you can think of it concretely when you're watching maybe a toddler with watercolors. That toddler, all they're really interested in is mixing all the colors together, changing the colors in just that tray. The whole tray will be nothing but brown. The paper will be nothing but brown. Or they might be interested in dipping the brush in the water, putting water on the paper, brush in the water, water on the paper. Pretty soon they've got a hole through the paper. And then their final product is a brown piece of paper with holes in it. That is the magic of the process art. That's where their interest was. We gave them the time to really explore that medium of watercolors. And then if they have that time, then they'll be able to figure out what they want to do with it. Eventually, they'll experiment with maybe keeping the colors a little more pure or maybe using different amounts of water on the paper. But at the time that they are just exploring a new medium, they don't care about making a pretty flower picture. They're just enjoying the medium.
That's so great. This is making me think of when my daughter and I took a weaving class. She was actually quite a bit older. She was 13. But what I noticed is she was much more about the process. I was much more focused on like creating this perfect piece. And she just did what she wanted. She just was really quick to grab the colors she wanted. And she made this amazing work of art, but I think what was most important is the process for her was just enjoying trying different fibers, trying different things with the petals on the loom, and just being involved in the process. And to me, it really looked so much more joyful. I mean, I still appreciated what I was doing. I wouldn't have been doing it otherwise, but I also appreciated the outcome, but I did really come away with deeply valuing that process. And so can you talk about why process and why process art is so beneficial, and how does that compare with making crafts?
Oh, yeah. Crafts. Everyone loves a craft. They are really nice gifts, mementos. Those little handprint crafts have, some sentimental value, especially to parents years later. But the difference is when you're doing a craft, somebody else has already just made all the decisions for you. Somebody's cut the pieces to the right proportion and size. Somebody has decided what it's going to look like. Somebody has decided what goes where. And if you do it again and again, you're probably going to get the same result. And the reason process art has more educational benefits than crafts is because all of those decisions have to come from the child. There's so much decision making in colors. What am I going to use? How am I going to create this? What do I want to create? How does this idea, how am I going to turn the idea that's in my head into something I can share with others? And then even like the problem solving if you watch a child, you'll see them, maybe they're going to draw a dinosaur and they'll start with the head and put the head in the middle of the paper and then realize there's not enough room on the paper for the rest of this big dinosaur body. You'll see them flip it over and start again. With process art, there's so much more engagement from the child through the problem solving piece. If we think about, let's say a child really loves sharks. I have two options. My child is into sharks and I can invite him over to something that I've already pre-cut, tell them where to glue the eye, tell them where to paste the pre-cut teeth, or I can put out blank paper and materials and open books of real life shark pictures, or maybe get their toy shark and put it out and see then how does that change their art. Instead of me in the craft where I say the fin goes on top, they're actually studying a picture, trying to remember that, and the education that they're gaining themselves, they're putting into their work. So that's why there's so many more benefits in the process art versus the crafts.
Well, I'm just thinking about the connection to that with all sorts of planning challenges that we all face in life. Being able to really look at something like maybe you're trying to figure out the furniture for your living room or something like that, but just lots of practical activities where you have to plan and stop and make decisions. And how powerful to give kids through very fun and messy, dirty activities, the opportunities to do that. And I think sometimes we minimize those things that are really tied to lots of important things that happen throughout our life. So I wonder if you can tell us a little about a few ideas about what people can do at home, how they can incorporate process art. You already mentioned one great idea with sharks, and who doesn't find sharks ultimately fascinating? But what are some other things that parents can do? Because this is something I think really can be fun for parents too. And you have to do a little planning for the messes that might come about, So that's your decision making and responsibility. But give us a few concrete ideas that people could go out and do this afternoon if they're inclined to.
I think the first thing that's kind of a challenge for adults is just moving past white paper and color sheets. Like if we could challenge ourselves as adults to offer a richer array of materials. Maybe it is just the Amazon box and some paints and tape. Maybe it is just a cup of water and a brush and have them go outside and paint the outside of the house just with water. Or with that same cup of water and a brush, then send them outside with the sidewalk chalk and notice how the chalk changes when it's wet. Can you erase it with the brush? Those are just like some simple ideas that most people have easily on hand. Another thing I think we forget is sculpture art. If you give a child just a pile of buttons, popsicle sticks, maybe it's pipe cleaners, maybe it's little corks. Those things, let them just stack them, glue them. Some children just love exploring glue. Let them try to build it super tall, or maybe they're going to create a specific shape or animal out of these odd pieces. And I think finally we forget sometimes to give art back to children. So say that they are coloring with crayons one day and draw a picture of the family. We can take that same picture and give it back to them on another day with maybe watercolors. So now they can add paint to the same piece of art. Same thing with the sculptures items. Give them back to them. Let them keep gluing or maybe paint them, color them. There are a few ideas that I think can just push us a little bit past the usual white piece of paper and crayons. And then the only other thing I would say is think about the paper that we use. We think of art as white sheets of art paper, but there's brown paper bags, wrapping paper, newspaper, tissue paper. All of that can get creative juices flowing in children.
I just have to inject something. When you said the brown paper bags, I just had a flash. I had my birthday was in April, so it's been quite a while now, but we just celebrated it last week I celebrated it with a friend who has a birthday close to mine. And she's a psychologist I worked with for years, and she has become quite a successful artist. She shows her stuff and sells her stuff all over, but she's a very process kind of person in the way she creates. And she didn't have a gift bag for the gift she was giving me. And so she grabbed a grocery store bag or some bag that didn't have logos covering it, it was pretty plain, big brown bag. And she turned it into this just wonderful work of art. So I'm saving that bag to give to somebody else when I have a gift to give them on their birthday. But just a great example of that. And I looked at that and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that too. I want to get out those brown paper bags that I have stacked in my cleaning closet and, get out there. And how many different things could I do with those? So, I'm just thinking too, parents and grandparents might want to join in with what the kids are doing, not taking it over and not doing the same thing, or certainly not telling them how to do it, but, just get in the mix.
Yeah, that's such a good story, Mom, because I think it is something that we can continue to do because we're all stuck at our desks or at the computer for at least some part of the day, depending on our jobs. And we're not often using those creative skills, and it does use a different part of our brain. And it's really important to maintain that across the lifespan. So it's not just helpful for young kids. But I'm also struck by some of the overlap and the connections between process art and loose parts play. And so I would encourage anyone listening to check out our website, momenough.com, and check out our previous Facebook Live episode podcast where we've talked about topics related to this, like loose parts play. So you could search that on our website and find some more wisdom here from Sara Reichstadt. So that was, I think that idea of just broadening the range of materials we offer our children. I remember when the kids were little, we would go to a restaurant or something. They would often give kids crayon and paper, or maybe you had an extra napkin when they ran out. But they often did the spoon and twisted the paper, or scratched it, or wrapped the napkin around the spoon, and when they were really little, maybe just making percussion sounds on the table. And that idea of not limiting children. And I do worry with how much screen time younger and younger children are having. I mean, I see toddlers sitting in high chairs at restaurants with a smartphone in their hands. And we're really missing key developmental opportunities, and that even a boredom can pose for children, because we're trying to fill the space. So we give them a device when we could give them the materials to do something creative and help them develop that skill. Because long term, when children kind of have opportunities to keep themselves busy, they're going to fare better than if they're just given a phone. Because then if they're given a phone, they're going to want to be entertained. They're going to want to have some sort of stimulation. They're going to want external drive for things rather than that internal motivation. And so there's really a lot of research to support this and to support a shift in how we approach our kind of moments when we don't maybe have the energy to be as engaged, or those times when we're distracted or we're at a restaurant or something, this is a great opportunity to use process art and to maybe throw in the diaper bag or in your purse or handbag or backpack or whatever, some supplies that are just, maybe you find like a receipt and some other things that you don't care about, and you can just have your kids color on them. And so I think there's lots of ways we could do this. I wondered too, what are some additional tools or maybe tips to support these somewhat messy educational experiences at home? Because I'm thinking about when the kids were little, like sometimes it took a little bit of courage as a parent to really open the floodgates on these things. I actually went so far as to get like this clear plastic mat that I would put on the floor, and I would lay everything out. And I would say, you could do anything you want in this circle. And by the end of my children's early childhood, that mat, like you could not see through it. It was sticky, it was colored, it had paint, it had everything on it. And but we had a lot of fun with that. And so I'm curious what tips you have.
Yeah, that mat was probably much more beautiful at the end of its.
It's hanging on her wall now, you know.
Memento. Yeah. Like the mat, my favorite tool for process art at home is a vinyl tablecloth, one that wipes off easy. I like those flannel backed ones. They store easy, they fold up easy and put them back in the art cabinet. I love those because they protect a big space. Smocks or paint shirts, those are important. Also thinking about if sometimes trays or even maybe a cookie sheet can just kind of contain, if it's watery art, or even if you're making like a slime or homemade Play-Doh, sometimes those trays kind of help. I would say wipes are nice if you don't want to use a wet wipe, or those pop-up wipes. Oh, just having a wet washcloth on hand. You're going to probably use it in that messy time, whether you're wiping the table, the floor, or the child. And then move outside whenever you can. Take that messy stuff outside, because the cleanup's really nothing at that point.
Well, and there's so many loose parts outside too. I remember Aaron's kids, and I have a big backyard and lots of little nooks and crannies where now the rabbits live there. We have about 300 rabbits in our yard, I think, and lots of babies. But the kids would make fairy houses, and they would just find twigs and leaves and interesting little odds and ends and make these just really, these were a nice little product in a way, but it was the process that they loved, and they'd get so excited about what they found in the bushes. And they were usually a mess when they finished, but into the shower and hose them down, whatever.
Yeah, the garden.
Lots of nature outside can really be incorporated into all kinds of art, both process and product.
Yeah, I had a wooden box for my daughter that I said was like, this is a fairy house, and you can design and create it however you want. So she had like a shell that was a hot tub. And so at the end of the day, her friend across the street had one too. And so at the end of the day, I would often ask them, like, what's happened in your house? And one time I actually got permission from the neighbors, but I snuck into their house. And I went into my daughter's, her fairy house, and I made these teeny tiny letters out of folded paper. Like I made envelopes, and I wrote in teeny tiny letters about the fairies of our avenue, and how much I appreciated the hot tub today. It was so delightful, and it was wonderful to have a nice soak after this. And I left that in their fairy houses based on the stories that they had created. So, you can really see how process art can lead to storytelling, to, it's all interconnected. And I think that's the beautiful thing about something like this, is it's interdisciplinary, and that type of learning is so beneficial for children.
I love that, Erin. That's great.
Yeah, that was so cute.
Yeah, it would have been weird to sneak into the neighbor's house without asking, of course.
Erin's done that a few times too, but we'll save that for another Facebook Live event.
Yeah.
I want to just add one comment that goes back to the comment about boredom and Erin's mention of the devices that are given to children at such young ages. I just want to scream. But I think, we as parents and grandparents as well are often afraid to let our kids get bored. And I think that really is what drives a lot of the overuse of, either planned toys or electronic devices, which I think are the biggest offender of really depriving kids of an opportunity to get bored. And when Erin's kids were little, maybe I said the same thing back when Erin and her brother were kids, but I remember it especially with Erin's two kids, Clara and McKinley, who I took care of a lot when they were young. That was one of the great joys of being a grandparent. And every once in a blue moon, one of them would say, "Grandma, I'm bored." And they didn't do that for very long, because my response to that was always, "That's so cool. I can't wait to see what your brain comes up with to get you unbored." And, they really took to that. And then they would just be running back later, guess what we did, or guess what I did. So I think just getting comfortable with boredom and kind of reframing it for kids. Oh, that's an opportunity for you to use that smart brain of yours.
Yeah, and that's called positive outcome expectancy.
Yeah.
So you use
that's
phrases
right.
to guide your children to the possibility that something very exciting and positive could happen. And so rather than saying like, "Oh, you're bored. Oh, no," by shaping it as an opportunity, you're shifting their perspective and opening up the possibility for a positive outcome to come from that situation. So it's a great tool to use as a parent to say, well, I wonder what you will notice as you discover all the opportunities you have available to you at this time. And where might you start to think about that? Or where might you look for something that you could explore in this time? And so that's a great way to kind of set the stage for this process art. Well, Sara, thank you so much. As always, I just so love our conversations with you. And you always have such practical and, evidence grounded and kind of research-based, I guess I would say, research-based ideas for parents to follow that are really grounded in what we know about child development. And I think I often think about in these times when we're talking to you, because my kids are much older now, I think about how I wish I'd had Sara in my life when my children were little. So, but I'm glad that our listeners get to have you and your wisdom today. And we're incredibly grateful for Kinderberry Hill's supporting partnership that allows us to continue to do this work of sharing evidence-based free resources for parents and families and educators and anyone else who cares about children. So we're incredibly grateful. And you can check out Kinderberry Hill at kinderberryhill.com, and you can check out our website, momenuff.com, and you can hear more from Sara there. So thank you so much, Sara. And thanks to all of you for tuning into this episode of Mom Enough Live. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful weekend.